Okay, so because they went in with the defense that no classified information had been shared, no war plans had been shared, the Goldberg reached out to the White House and said, "Hey, okay, well, given that all of these statements were made that this wasn't really war plans or classified information, is it okay if I release it?" Which put them in a bind because how do you tell them not to release it without acknowledging that it's classified? So they basically did a little dance of, well, we'd rather you didn't because it might reveal things. And basically they were like, all right, yeah, go fuck yourself. We're going to release it. So
Yeah.
they did. Here are the attack plans that Trump's advisor shared on Signal. Now, somebody in our comments today said, yeah, well, the Atlantic, you know what? They retracted that they shared war plans. And I was like, what? So I Googled it. I would have been very surprised. I Googled it and I couldn't find anything. And then I realized when I saw the Sugar Baby press secretary there talk about how the Atlantic retracted it, I realized what they're doing is playing semantic games with the word attack. They're saying
Right.
that yeah, no, within the body of the article, I'll show you this later. They say war plans within the body of the article. It was just a choice of words. They certainly did not only did they not retract, they doubled down. So they published the entire chain. Since they say it's not classified, they can't send them into El Salvador. So they published it.
Right.
And here's the really relevant part to the defense that they're making. At 11:44 a.m. Eastern Time, Hegseth posted in the chat in all caps, "Team update." The text beneath this began, "Time now, 11:44 Eastern Time. Weather is favorable. Just confirmed with CENTCOM. We are a go for mission launch." CENTCOM, and this is their commentary. CENTCOM, or Central Command, is the military's combatant command for the Middle East. The Hegseth text continues. 12:15 Eastern Time, F-18s launch, first strike package. 13:45, trigger-based F-18 first strike window starts. Target terrorist is at his known location, so should be on time. Also, strike drones launch MQ-9s. Okay, so this is text from the article. Let us pause here for a moment to underscore a point. This signal message shows that the U.S. Secretary of Defense texted a group that included a phone number unknown to him, Goldberg's cell phone, at 11:44 a.m. This was 31 minutes before the first U.S. warplanes launched and 2 hours and 1 minute before the beginning of a period in which a primary target, the Houthi target terrorist, was expected to be killed by these American aircraft. If this text had been received by someone hostile to American interests or someone merely indiscreet and with access to social media, the Houthis would have had time to prepare for what was meant to be a surprise attack on their strongholds. The consequences for American pilots could have been catastrophic. They're trying to argue that because the mission came off and none of this came to pass, it's okay. It's all right. No harm, no foul.
Right.
The Hegseth text then continued. 14:10, more F-18s launch, second strike package. 14:15, strike drones on target. This is when the first bombs will definitely drop, pending earlier trigger-based targets. 15:36, F-18 second strike starts. Also, first sea-based Tomahawks launched. More to follow per timeline. This is funny. We are currently clean on OPSEC. That is operational security. He texts this with a reporter within the
Yeah.
chain claiming that they have good operational security. Godspeed to our warriors.
Send
Short.
nudes. Oh, sorry. That was supposed to be just for Tulsi. That was just for Tulsi. Sorry. I didn't. Yeah.
Send me one of those dudes with a Dalmatian that you did.
Yeah.
Shortly after, Vice President J.D. Vance texted the group, "I will say a prayer for victory." At 1:48 p.m., Walt sent the following text, containing real-time intelligence about conditions at an attack site, apparently in Sana'a. Quote, VP, building collapsed, had multiple positive ID. Pete Carilla, the IC, amazing job, unquote. Waltz was referring here to Hegseth, General Michael E. Carilla, the commander of Central Command, and the intelligence community, or IC. The reference to multiple positive ID suggests that U.S. intelligence had ascertained the identities of the Houthi target or targets using either human or technical assets. Okay, so day two. Tulsi looked no less terrified, but a lot more contrite. When rats are caught on a sinking ship, they start trying to figure out how they can clamber over the side. And that's what I would make of some of her admissions here. So here's the first clip.
Yes, Ranking Member. My answer yesterday was based on my recollection, or the lack thereof, on the details that were posted there. I was not, and what was shared today reflects the fact that I was not directly involved with that part of the Signal chat, and replied at the end reflecting the effects, the very brief effects that the National Security Advisor had shared.
So it's your testimony that less than 2 weeks ago, you were on a Signal chat that had all of this information about F-18s and MQ-9 Reapers and targets on strike, and you in that 2-week period simply forgot that that was there. That's your testimony?
My testimony is I did not recall the exact details of what was included there.
That was not your testimony. Your testimony was that you were not aware of anything related to weapons packages, targets, and timing.
As the testimony yesterday continued on, there were further questions related to that, where I acknowledged that there was conversation about weapons, and I don't remember the exact wording that I used, but I did not recall the specific details that were included.
Director Gabbard.
Well, then maybe you're not qualified to be the director of national intelligence. If what you are saying is that you could be included on a conversation about detailed military operations happening in real time and not remember that, or think there's anything maybe wrong with using Signal to do that on various phones that may or may not be secure, well, maybe you're not qualified for your job. She goes on, and this is even more damning, about the fact that people were overseas having this conversation on Signal.
Witkoff was actually in Russia during this chat discussion, was he not?
I was not aware of that.
Was he on his personal phone at the time?
I don't know.
Well, it's my understanding that he was indeed in Russia. Director Gabbard, you were also traveling during this discussion, correct?
Yes.
And where were you?
I was traveling through the Asia-Pacific region. I don't recall which country I was in at that time.
You don't remember the country?
I'd have to go back and look at the schedule.
This is brutal. Jesus.
Now,
Christ.
I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. Wherever you are on the ideological spectrum, whatever your beliefs are, whatever your politics are, you cannot with a straight face tell me that if that were Lloyd Austin or any Democrat or anyone from the Biden administration sitting there answering that, yeah, I'm not sure where Witkoff was. I'm not sure where he was when he was having this conversation. Maybe Russia.
Yeah.
Russia. I was overseas. Yeah, we were all having these very sensitive war planning conversations on Signal, and I didn't really know where people were. The Republicans would be screaming bloody murder for everyone to be fired, for investigations,
100%.
for impeachments. So anyone who's saying, "No, man, that wasn't classified information," I'm sorry, just stop it. Just stop it. Come on. So Ratcliffe builds on, you see, he was laying the groundwork for that on day one. Hey, I didn't do nothing. I didn't do it. Maybe they did. I didn't.
With regard to that article, I also would appreciate the opportunity to relay the fact that yesterday I spent 4 hours answering questions from senators as a result of that article that were intimating that I transmitted classified information because there were hidden messages. Those messages were revealed today and revealed that I did not transmit classified information, and that the reporter, who I don't know, I think intentionally intended it to indicate that. That reporter also indicated that I had released the name of an undercover CIA operative in that signal chat. In fact, I had released the name of my chief of staff, who is not operating undercover.
Okay, so he's lying. All right. So if you actually go and you read the article, it specifically says about that specific figure that while he's not an operative, traditionally, you don't name people in that position. You just don't. They actually make a point of saying that. So this whole technique for him, it's, well, they might have said classified stuff, but I didn't. He's not saying it that way, but that's essentially what he's saying. And then he's trying to smear the reporter, which clearly is the tactic they've all chosen to take where available. Rubio takes a similar tack. These are not guys you'd want to be in a foxhole with, I'll tell you that. They're all throwing each other overboard. Rubio also takes the tack, hey, I didn't say anything classified.
I've been, so I can speak to myself or my presence on it. I think my role on it was just speaking for my role. I contributed to it twice. I identified my point of contact, which is my chief of staff. And then later on, I think 3 hours after the White House's official announcements had been made, I congratulated the members of the team. I've been assured by the Pentagon and everyone involved that none of the information that was on there, though not intended to be divulged, obviously that was a mistake and that shouldn't have happened, and the White House is looking at it, but that none of the information on there at any point threatened the operation or the lives of our servicemen. And in fact, it was a very successful operation.
Yeah, through no fault of your own. Through no fault of your own. Like, what if an adversary had gotten this information? That couldn't have happened. You didn't even know that this person was on the chat. Anyone could have been on the chat. You could have had Z on the chat. You guys wouldn't have known.
Yeah.
So Carolyn Leavitt, Washington's most successful sugar baby since Mary Todd Lincoln. She went up there and kind of pulled all the threads together into one batshit crazy rant.
The mainstream media continues to be focused on a sensationalized story from the failing Atlantic magazine that is falling apart by the hour. Here are the facts. The National Security Advisor has taken responsibility for this matter, and the National Security Council immediately said, alongside the White House counsel's office, that they are looking into how a reporter's number was inadvertently added to this messaging thread. We have said all along that no classified material was sent on this messaging thread. There were no locations, no sources or methods revealed, and there were certainly no war plans discussed. The Atlantic has even admitted this themselves.
Okay. So, as I said, we would get to this. So they're trying to make something out of the fact that they headlined it attack plans instead of war plans. But within the actual text of the article, they do not back down from that claim. Yesterday, we asked officials across the Trump administration if they objected to us publishing the full texts. In emails to the Central Intelligence Agency, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the National Security Council, the Department of Defense, and the White House, we wrote in part, quote, in light of statements today from multiple administration officials, including before the Senate Intelligence Committee, that the information in the signal chain about the Houthi strike is not classified and that it does not contain war plans, the Atlantic is considering publishing the entirety of the signal chain. They are just completely making that up out of whole cloth that they retracted that claim. And as we have seen in our own comments section, they have no shortage of morons who will take the bait as long as you throw it to them.
Piece of these internal messages validates the truth, which we have been saying all along. If this story proves anything, It proves that Democrats and their propagandists in the mainstream media know how to fabricate, orchestrate, and disseminate a misinformation campaign quite well. And there's arguably no one in the media who loves manufacturing and pushing hoaxes more than Jeffrey Goldberg. Goldberg is an anti-Trump hater. He is a registered Democrat. Goldberg's wife is also a registered Democrat and a big Democrat donor who used to work under who? Hillary Clinton. This is the same Jeffrey Goldberg who infamously lied about weapons of mass destruction to get us into the Iraq War, which cost trillions of dollars and thousands of American soldiers. And how else has Goldberg discredited himself? By absurdly claiming that President Trump was Vladimir Putin during the 2016 campaign, by peddling the Russia, Russia, Russia hoax that tried to hijack President Trump's first term, by inventing the suckers and losers hoax to help Joe Biden in the 2020 election, by peddling a hoax about President Trump involving Gold Star families to help Kamala Harris in the 2024 election.
Well, sounds like a really unscrupulous sleazebag that you may want to check to make sure is not on the text thread when you're divulging sensitive military operation. Like, they think this is a point in their favor? They're describing what a scumbag the guy is.
Right. So why was he on the chain? And of course,
why was he on the chain?
She's just lying. I mean, we just read through. It does have operational details. It does have details of weapons, timing, location in real time. That's all coming out. She's just lying. And then look, they know who their base is. They're hitting all of the buttons, all the pressure points that are going to shut down any kind of critical thinking. You got to remember, man, when you have a cult of personality like this, you don't need to have plausible deniability. You just need to give your minions deniability.
Right.
Whatever you throw them, no classified information. Anyone who thinks about it for a second knows that information like that is classified. If you thought about it for 1 second, it's just giving their flying monkeys a fig leaf. They said it's not classified. And did you know this about Jeffrey Goldberg? Yeah, he's the editor-in-chief at The Atlantic. Of course, he's a scumbag. If you disqualified every person working at that level of journalism in America, you wouldn't have any sources that you could even go by. You couldn't even talk about it. What? Do you have the money to go do this kind of reporting and research? That is why I dismiss, no matter where it's coming from, no matter who it's directed at. Attack the source, I dismiss immediately. Immediately. That is the first refuge of people without evidence. If you have evidence that what he revealed is not true, then bring it forth. But we know it is true because they admitted that it's true.
Right.
That is how Orwellian the argument that you shouldn't listen to it because of who he is they admitted that it's true. So what does it matter who released it? It doesn't matter if the freaking Antichrist released it. They admitted that it's true. Jeffrey Goldberg's character doesn't enter into it. I'm sure he wrote 1 million hit pieces against the left. I'd be shocked if I actually bothered to search for it if I didn't find that. I didn't bother because it's not the point. It doesn't matter. It's true or it's not true, and they're not denying that it's true. Who cares about Jeffrey Goldberg? But they know who does care. Their flying monkeys care.
Right.
They got to give them some talking points with which they can barricade themselves against the obvious fact that you got a bunch of clowns and drunks that have been installed by Daddy to run the security state that they were supposed to fix.
Yeah, and by run the security state, I just want to point out one more time because we're going to clip this separately. By run the security, in this context, the mission that Marco Rubio is so proud of was bombing the poorest people in the world, including civilians, which they were well aware of at the time. If you notice in the text message chain, they're well aware that they're bombing a residential building with civilians inside.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that the libs are covering themselves in glory here. I actually shared a meme, pointing out the liberal hypocrisy. Yeah, I'm okay with bombing people for trying to stop a genocide, but sharing information about bombing those people is where I draw the line. Absolutely. The libs, are they hypocrites? Are they covering themselves in glory here? Absolutely not. They're the same kinds of hypocrites, but that's the point. So were they.
Right. Exactly.
So were they. that this entire system is full of corrupt criminals, whether it's MAGA, whether it's the libs. They're all just different flavors of the same corrupt oligarchic system.
Please clap.